Namaste and greetings. I, Bhanvi, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान, नई दिल्ली, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI #webpolicylearning. Today, we are gathered here for day 4 of a 4-week online certificate training course on ending violence against women, awareness of laws and policies in India. This training program is organized by the IMPRI, Gender Impact Study Center, Impact and Policy Research Institute, New Delhi. This course will be chaired by Professor VIBHUTI Patel, visiting distinguished professor at IMPRI. The convener for this course is Dr. Simi Mehta, CEO and editorial director at IMPRI, and master trainer for the course is Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam, advocate, author, and research agent and human rights and visiting senior fellow at IMPRI. This program has an excellent panel of experts who will be sharing their expertise in this course for these 4 weeks. The distinguished expert panel includes Advocate Dr. Albertina Almeida, Dr. Kethi Bulineni, Professor Bijay Lakshmi Nanda, Advocate Celine Thomas, Ms. Anju Dubey Pandey, Dr. Ranjana Kumari, Ms. Nandini Sarkar. I welcome you all to this enlightening deliberation and thank you for putting your time, energy, and efforts into truly understanding the need related to the issues of gender equality, gender rights, and violence against women, and looking into the dimensions of laws and policies in India concerning this issue, and thus helping us to bring together the practitioners, scholars, and participants for impactful policy research and bring in various remedies and action. We have also shared the study material and course outline via email on the topic related to gender violence for better perusal and understanding. Before we start today's session, I would like to announce the housekeeping rules. It is imperative that you join the meeting on time. There will be a Q&A session after each presentation. Share your questions in the Q&A box and not in the chat box. The questions must not be posted as an anonymous attendee. Ensure that your questions are precise. Refrain from making journal comments in the question to save time. Our discussion for day 4 will revolve around the theme of ensuring safety of women in homes. Today, we will have special remarks by Professor Bijay Lakshmi Nanda ji, a training class by Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam ji, who will discuss domestic violence law and other measures, followed by the expert session by Dr. Kethi Bulineni, who will be discussing on domestic violence, awareness of policies and laws in India. Now, without any further ado, I would like to invite the chair for our course, Professor VIBHUTI Patel ji, to start the session with her opening remarks, following which we will start today's session. Looking forward to learning from the enlightening deliberation. Over to you, ma'am.
Good evening, friends. Now today is the last day of immersive online certificate course on ending violence against women, awareness of laws and policies in India by Impact and Policy Research Institute, Gender Impact Studies, GISC, and that was suggested by Master Trainer, Dr. Shalu Nigam. Day 1, let us have a recap in brief. On day 1, on April 8th, the theme was ensuring women's safety in situation of increasing violence, where the special remarks were provided by Dr. Anju Dubey Pandey based on her extensive experience with the UN Women, and she also made the participants abreast with the latest developments in the global discourse and the global instruments to combat violence against women. After that, we had Advocate Shalu Nigam, who gave us an overview, an eagle's eye view of the violence against women, both the ground level reality, the problems that we face by dealing with the legal system, and what are the pathways and what kind of support system and alternatives that have been created. And after that, I gave a presentation on women's movement's response to violence against women right from the late 70s. And because of the collective effort and the collective wisdom of the women's movement, how Indian women managed to get series of legal reforms to combat domestic violence, dowry harassment, sexual violence, child sexual abuse, and also series of reforms that we had even in the personal laws and family laws, how the criminal and civil aspect of the laws, they got combined in the Protection of Women for Domestic Violence Act. And now what kind of problems that we are facing at the while dealing with the criminal justice system. Day 2 on April 15th was dedicated to violence against women, legal safeguards and other measures, in which veteran feminist and the women's rights activist Dr. Ranjana Kumari, who has dedicated her life for more than 4 decades to fight for women's rights in terms of both ground mobilizing women and also being a public intellectual and the voice of women in the mainstream media. She also spoke about the heroic battle that the Indian women's movement gave right from the time of Mathura rape case and the amendments in the rape laws that we managed to get. And also she gave a vivid description of 2013 when of Nirbhaya rape case and the protest for nearly 40 days continuously in that the Indian youth had made, which resulted in a changes in the Indian Evidence Act. Legal safeguards and constitutional rights were introduced to us by Dr. Shalo Nigam, and she also gave both the global perspective, national perspective, and also the operational challenges that we were facing. Dr. Albertina Almeida's presentation was on substantive equality, where she talked about the constitutional safeguards and how to make it substantive by both the judicial route, legislative route, and the mobilization at a grassroots level. Day 3 on 22nd April 2023 was focused on ensuring safety of women in public space, where the special remarks were given by Nandini Sarkar, who has worked extensively with the corporate world, and also she has been on several apex bodies and important committees to ensure safety of women at the workplace. And she extensively discussed her first-hand experiences of dealing with the cases and extremely difficult cases and the appeal task that was that she had to really face while dealing with some of the problematic or extremely difficult cases of sexual harassment at workplace, and the consistency with which the women activists as well as person like Nandini Sarkar worked, that we have now, we see that more and more employers are becoming aware of it. Things are in the service book, in the rules and regulations, in the code of conduct of the public institutions, both in the public enterprises, public sector enterprises, and in the private sector enterprises, in media houses, that now safety of women has become a very important concern. She also talked about safety on the road. So how do we do the town planning? How do we ensure more secure spaces for women in the public spaces? Same Dr. Shalo Nigam, when she talked about on law and safety of women in public spaces, she linked up legal provisions and whether it's changes in the Rape Law or Sexual Violence Act, Sexual Harassment, Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act 2013, and POCSO, Protection of Children from Sexual Offense Ordinance. And also the way infrastructure, the safe infrastructure that needs to be created, how to use the Nirbhaya fund so that we create more funds and more functions for the state and non-state actors, and also the functionaries who would implement and ensure safety. Advocate Celine Thomas, who is a practicing lawyer in Bangalore, she spoke on violence in public spaces and the legal safeguards, where she narrated her personal experiences of dealing with the cases of sexual harassment at workplace, where she's sitting on various committees. And she said that what she emphasized that under any circumstances we should not be quiet. We must speak out. We must fight back. It is painful. It is tearing. It is tiring. But one should not give up. And once if we stick out our neck, there are people who would come and support us. No, that was the confidence with which she said that why we need to fight against injustice. Now today, on day 4, the last day, the theme is ensuring safety of women in homes, and we are expecting very interesting discussion on domestic violence law and other measures by Dr. Salu Nigam, and Dr. Domestic Violence and Overview and Issues and Challenges from Dr. Kirti Bolineni, whose organization, a very big organization in Andhra Pradesh, in fact, National Commission for Women, has also taken it as a pilot to ensure safety of women, both in the domestic arena and in the public spaces. And we are also eagerly awaiting Professor Vijayalakshmi Nanda's special remarks on the subject. Over to IMPRI team. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. So now we would move to the training session by Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigam. She is an advocate, author, researcher, gender and human rights, and visiting senior fellow at IMPRI. Ma'am will discuss on the topic of domestic violence laws and other measures. Over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, good afternoon to all of you, and thank you, Professor Patel, for giving such a wonderful background of what we have done for past 3 days. And so today I will be talking about ensuring safety of women in homes. So yeah, so I'll start with how do we construe homes. So homes are basically they are supposed to provide safety, comfort, security, trust and respect. And even during the COVID, we have seen that slogan which has emerged: stay home, stay safe. Now, but also we have seen how the violence has increased during the COVID. And so I know we have to, and the UN has called it shadow pandemic. We have discussed during the first session also. So the question is that, are women really safe in homes where the protectors, those people who are supposed to be providing protection to women, they turn as predators? So I'll also like to quote this famous poem by Kamla Bhasin, Because I Am a Girl, I Must Study, where this is about denial of education rights within homes. And she has wonderfully said this, and it's available on the YouTube in English and Hindi. So I'm not reading it, so you can just see that poem, and how the daughter challenges the father that, okay, why are you denying me my right to study? I have to study because I am a girl. So but then how law recognize domestic abuse? Now, domestic abuse is generally in the law, it is recognized as domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and it's basically they're talking about a man-woman relationship. They are not considering the natal family violence as domestic abuse, like natal family violence, as we come to it. It is much larger than that. But here we are talking about intimate partner violence, which is a pattern of behavior in any relationship that is used to gain or maintain power and control over your partner. So abuse could be physical, sexual, emotional, economic, or psychological, and it includes behavior like such as frightening the other partner, intimidating, terrorizing, manipulating, hurt, humiliating the person, blaming the person, injuring someone, and also coercion, harassment, and which can endanger the life of other person. And it could be related to dowry, or it could be for any other reason. These incidents are rarely isolated, and it is a continuous form of violence which took place. It's like, and usually it escalates in frequency and severity. So it instills basically fear of future violent attack. So it's basically the fear which act as a a major component through which the abuser take control of the victim's life and circumstances. And some of the examples of such conduct include beating, forced sexual intercourse, making a woman watch pornography, insults, humiliation, all kinds of violence occurs, and it occurs across all socioeconomic backgrounds and education levels. And it could happen to anyone, any race, age, or in all kind of religions. Violence is happening. So coming to our context of a society which is more patrilineal, more male-dominated, and the natal home violence also include abortion, feticide, infanticide, discrimination against girl child, denial of health and education rights, incest, selling women, witch hunting, discriminating widows, all kind of these kind forms of violence we all are aware of, and some of these are covered by laws. Some are not, like we have PCP-NDT Act to cover female feticide and infanticide, but for many other forms of violence, we don't have separate laws. So that is one thing, that natal family violence is not yet covered, though the power dynamics operate both within the natal family as well as in the matrimonial families. Because Indian family, we glorify the family, we romanticize the family in literatures, movie, television serials, but we forget that family also reproduce patriarchy. So our constitution, it says equality, equality of sexes and all forms of equality it has talked about. But when it comes to family, this equality doesn't exist within the family. Even the legal system, though on papers it recognizes equality, but if you talk about implementation, the Delhi High Court, in one of its famous judgment, titled as Harvinder Kaur versus Harminder Singh Chaudhary, it says that introduction of constitutional law in a home is most inappropriate. It is like introducing a bull in a china shop. It will prove to be a ruthless destroyer of marriage institution and all that it stands for. So in privacy of home and married life, neither Article 21 nor Article 14 has any place. So, this is how the legal system is built upon. So, but if we talk about legal reforms, legal reforms started in India with, Section 304B and 498A being introduced in 1980 when women's movement, they raised this issue. But before that, we have Dowry Prohibition Act of 1961. And, because many women took part in freedom movement and they played a dynamic role in framing of the constitution also. But the question relating to dowry and violence in marriage during the colonial period could not receive sufficient attention. So even if you see the parliamentary debate which took place in 1959, like before this act was formulated, even in that debate, dowry is not construed as exploitative practice, but it is seen as by the legislators as a traditional harmless voluntary exchange of gift. So it is not the violence that they are trying to prohibit by this Dowry Prohibition Act of 1961. So what is the definition of dowry? Section 2 of Dowry Prohibition Act, it defines dowry as property or valuable security given or agreed to be given either directly or indirectly. Now, the courts in several judgments have expanded this definition of dowry, and they have says that there is it has to be in connection with marriage, and it has to be a demand should be there. All those kind of things the courts have. If you analyze the judgments from for decade or even before that, you will come across all kind of definitions being expanded. So according to Section 3 of this law, it is offense to both take dowry and to give dowry. So the family of bridegroom is liable for taking dowry. So both the parties when they consented, so law considered that both the parties are offenders. But penalty for giving and taking dowry is 5 years of fine and 5 years of imprisonment and 15,000 of fine, or the amount of value of dowry. And if the person is demanding dowry, that person could be punished with minimum 6 months imprisonment up to 2 years, or fine, which could be 10,000 rupees. The advertisements regarding dowry are banned, and any forms of advertisements in any newspaper, journal, or through any other medium, if someone is sharing that kind of advertisement, that person could be liable to be punished with 6 months to 5 years of imprisonment. And the court can take cognizance of offense, and the report should be filed by the victims, her parents or relatives, or police in its own knowledge can take cognizance of the offense. So as per the rules amended in 1985, both the brides and grooms are required to keep the list of presents given to them. And this list should contain briefly the description of item which is given, its value, who is the person who is giving the gift, and this list should be signed by both the parties. Now, as a lawyer, many people ask me, what is Sridhan? Now, dowry constitutes Sridhan. Sridhan is something which is given to a bride from, it could be given to by my husband, by his relatives, or by my relatives. So it's all constitute Sridhan. So the law says is that if any the dowry is being given, that should be given to the bride immediately within 3 months of its acceptance, or the person could be punished for 6 months to 2 years of imprisonment. Now we lawyers we generally use section 406 of Indian Penal Code, which talks about criminal breach of trust. That means since you are being handling dowry, my gifts, my valuable gifts being given to me. So, you are liable to keep it safe. Otherwise, it is called as criminal breach of trust, for which a person could be imprisoned for 3 years imprisonment and fine. And if a bride dies before getting back her Sridhan, the offender has to give the same to her legal heirs. So what is the procedure for prescribed for filing a case of dowry? Dowry is a punishable offense, so victim has to file an FIR in the local police station. A comprehensive report is to be submitted, and a criminal case should be filed against the person who is asking for dowry. And filing complaint with police or women's cell is essential. And right now, since for past few years, the courts have come out with this decisions that while filing the case, the incomes and assets of both the parties should be given. So, I have been telling all my clients that you have to know what the income and assets of your, the other parties, because many times women don't know, how much income the man is earning, what are the assets, what are the family properties. So women are generally, most of the women, they don't know. So I've been telling my clients that you please keep track of, how much income the person is earning. So how the law operates, it talks about, the state government should appoint dowry prohibition officers who will implement the provisions. They will stop dowry transaction. They will collect evidences to make the cases strong. And, all kind of list is given, the duties of dowry prohibition officers. But in many states, this appointment of such officers exists on paper. And those who are appointed are either not aware of their duties, or they are so overworked that they don't find time to perform their duties, or they are not serious about the issue. So even though if Act has stringent provisions, 86% of criminals are set free because evidence is not there, and this evidence is being tampered. And the Department of Higher and Technical Education, they have issued circulars to all universities as well as National Scheme Service officials to organize a dowry week, anti-dowry week. But we all know how it is organized. So in 2019, a petition is filed before the Delhi High Court, and the court ordered the Delhi government to appoint the dowry prohibition officers. So the bench of Chief Justice D.N. Patel that time and Justice Hari Shankar, they asked the government to provide training to the DPOs and to ensure that they perform their duties. And the court also directed the government to prepare the necessary literature in the forms of pamphlet and frequently asked questions and all those kind of things. But the government is still, how much they are doing, that we have to really see. The court also says that the government should constitute an advisory board, as mentioned in the anti-dowry law, but I couldn't locate on the internet if there is some kind of board. So again, a petition before the Supreme Court is filed on 20th December 2021. The Supreme Court, while giving the decision, it asks for the petition says that the dowry law should be strengthened, and but the court says the petitioner that you go to the law commission and let them look into the strengthening this law. So petitioners, what they were seeking is the appointment of dowry prohibition officers in every district, and the power that should be given to this DPOs, it must be equivalent to those given to officers appointed under Right to Information Act. So the powers, if you go through the RTI Act, the powers of the officers there are much more stronger as compared to powers which is being given to DPOs. And the petition also says that gift given to a woman should be registered in her name till 7 years after the wedding. And it also says that no dowry certificates should be made essential for marriage registration and for getting employment with the government, or for availing schemes. The person should provide that I have not taken any dowry. Then it also says that a compulsory pre-marriage course for couples should be created to create awareness among people about dowry. But the Supreme Court, though, criticized the practice of dowry, but it says to the petitioners that you go to law commission, and the court says that people need to change from within, and they should learn to treat women respectfully. So these kind of efforts are being made every time we have to go to the Supreme Court or high courts, but still the dowry is something which is not going. We have discussed this. Kerala government is preparing some rules, the dowry prohibition rules. The Director of Women and Child Development there has been appointed as Chief Dowry Prohibition Officer, and they're imparting training to district officers. They're involving the voluntary organizations for assisting women, and they are setting up district advisory board to intensify awareness programs. The state policy is also saying that they're starting this campaign, Say No to Dowry. And they're also revising school textbooks and removing words and phrases which are harmful to women. And they're also rewriting the stories and the kind of curriculum which is being taught in school, so that that patriarchy somehow could be eliminated. So I think this kind of things if could be replicated by the other state governments, that could really help. So coming to the criminal law reform, we all know that in 1980, the kind of the step being taken by the women's movement, when a lot of women were dying because of stove deaths, and we know there were cases which took place, where 21-year-old Shashi Bala, she died in March 1979, within a year of her marriage, while she was pregnant, and that acted as a stimulus. Then Kanchan Chopra, stenographer in Delhi, she was burned by her husband, and she was forced to swallow the acid, and police registered this case as a suicide. In May 1979, Tarvinder Kaur, a 24-year-old bride from Model Town, Delhi, she was burnt alive, but her death was registered as suicide by police, even though in her dying statement she clearly stated that her in-laws have set her on fire. Now, this callousness and corruption on the part of police created outrage and resulted in demonstrations. So a private member bill was introduced in the parliament, and then the matter was referred to a joint selection committee of both the houses of parliament. And in August 1982, this committee presented a report, and it identified deficiencies within the Dowry Prohibition Act. It says that the definition of dowry is narrow, and there are procedural lapses in filing cases. And at the same time, the Delhi High Court has given the decision in the case of Sudha Goyal. Now, Sudha Goyal was again burned by her husband, mother-in-law, and brother-in-law, and but the court overturned this conviction given by the trial court. And several women's organizations in Delhi, they came together under the banner of the Hate Virodhi Chetna Manch, and these members, they decided that legal change is an instrument of social change. And, if they could help to create public consciousness, that could help. And they also have, performed various street plays. Omswa was one of the street play which was, performed to create awareness about dowry. And there are other plays also. So in 1983, the Criminal Law Second Amendment Act was introduced by the state, and the then Minister of Home Affairs, Venkat Subbiah, he said that the bill is to cover the cases of cruelty on account of dowry, and it introduced Section 498A, 304B, and added stringent punishment to Section 306 IPC. 306 is about the person who is committing suicide. So anybody who is aiding and abetting suicide of the woman, they could be penalized. And amendments were also introduced in Section 113A of Section Indian Evidence Act. And it says now that if a woman commits suicide within 7 years of marriage, there is an evidence of cruelty prior to her death, then her husband and in-laws could be held responsible for her murder, unless contrary is proved. So, and again, amendments were made in 1984 and 1986 to ask for strong punishments. So 498A is, about the provision is about any act of cruelty being inflicted on a married woman by her husband or in-laws. It is considered as an offense, and the punishment is up to 3 years, and it could be fined also. The person could be fined. So these are non-bailable, non-compoundable, and cognizable offense, and but they only provide punishment to the offender. So if the survivor is looking for other kind of reliefs, she has to go to the civil court. So 498A, again, the definition of cruelty, it says that the cruelty, the conduct should be of such a nature that it should it should be so grave that it should drive the woman to commit suicide, or it should cause grave injury to or danger to her life, limb, or health. And harassment of women because of dowry is also being defined as cruelty under Section 498A. Now, again, the experience of the women's organization show that criminal law can be activated only once the crime occurs, and it penalizes the accused, and it doesn't provide any relief to the victim. And also Section 304B, this is about dowry death, and it says that whoever commits dowry death shall be punished with the imprisonment of not less than 7 years or up to life imprisonment. So if a woman died because of burn or bodily injury, and that within 7 years of her marriage, and it is shown that soon before her death, she was subjected to cruelty or harassment by the husband or relatives, then it shall be constituted as dowry death. So the courts in several decisions have described the guidelines that, what kind of cases would fall under 304B. And they say that there should be demand of dowry and harassment because of dowry, and the deceased has died, and the death is under unnatural circumstances. So, and it should be within 7 years of marriage. So, and then the state could prove that the person has died because of it's a dowry death. But how the law operates on the ground. Now, this is a famous case, which was highlighted, which was also published in Manushi. It says that, a 16-year-old girl called Jyoti, she got married to Vinay Dhawan, who was a cable television operator living in Delhi. In 1995, she got married and she was tortured for dowry. In 1998, she lodged a complaint before the Crime Against Women cell, and this cell called both the parties, and compromise was arrived at, and Vinay and his parents agreed that they would not ill-treat her. But cruelty escalated, and between January to March 99, he clicked her nude pictures and threatened her, and her parents moved her to a tiny room with no toilet facility and only with a small ventilation a kilometer away, and she was fed only once a day. And her beating and ill treatment continued. And meanwhile, this man applied for divorce, but because the fear that she may die, his lawyer informed her mother that, this kind of thing is going on. And finally, she was rescued. And her brother has to carry her in his arms because she was too weak to walk on her own. And if you read the interview of Suman Nalva, who was the ACP of the Crime Against Women Cell and who was in charge of this case, and she clearly explained the kind of problems she went through, and how women who were coming to the Crime Against Women Cell, they are not aware of their rights, and so she said, that there is a problem with the system. So system is not foolproof. So, and there now within the women's movement also, several activists and several scholars, they have criticized this law because they say that, the protest which began in 1980s, they began because police was refusing to register the cases against the families. But again, what we demanded is that, more power is being now, because the law is changed, amended, and now more power is being given to a state, to the police, rather than consolidating the gains for women. And again, some of the scholars, they have said that dowry violence has been seen as a social evil rather than as a serious crime, and which has diluted the impact of interventions. And some of the scholars have said that, they said that the linkage between dowry violence and domestic abuse has weakened the campaign. So, and because in many of the complaints, it's not only that Jyoti's complaint, but also in many other cases, women are being compelled to adjust within the violent marriage until they were murdered. And no efforts have been made to tackle this tremendous pressure on women to stay in a violent relationship. So therefore, we have this, after much, with so much of experience and after much struggle with the government, we got this domestic violence law in 2005. And that there is a whole story behind this, because once this bill was brought, and then NCW, when the BJP government came into power, and they diluted the bill, and they say that, no, we should have the habitual assault as an essential feature within the law. And then I remember that, we of the women's organization, we went to meet Purnima Advani, who was the chairperson of NCW then. And then finally, the bill was finally sent to the parliamentary committee. And when in 2005, when Congress government came to power, we got this bill passed. And this bill provides civil remedies to the victims of domestic violence. And it recognized the rights of women to live in a violence-free home. And the major objective of these laws are to provide support to women. The law operates as a single window system to provide women's access to justice. The idea is to prevent multiplicity of proceedings and procedures, and recognize live-in relationship and other domestic relationships. So Section 3 of the Domestic Violence Act, it defines domestic violence in much more broader way. Now it says that not only violence will include that, abuse or harm, but it all or the harassment because of dowry, but it will also include physical abuse, such as which causes bodily injury or hurt, for example, beating, kicking, punching. It could also include sexual abuse and forced sexual intercourse, or making a woman watch pornography, all kind of behaviors. Then verbal and emotional abuse, which include insult, ridicule, and threat, causing harm or injury to women, such as name calling, ostracizing, blaming a woman for not having a male child. It will also include economic abuse. That means depriving someone of basic necessities of life and entitlements, such as denial of food, disposing of household assets, or disposing of freedom against her will. In all such cases, the law says that the judge will bear in mind the overall circumstances of the case. The law also defined domestic relationship. So domestic relationship now means any relationship between two persons living in a shared household. So the person could be, the woman could be wife, daughter-in-law, sister-in-law, or a widow, or any other member of family. She could be, in the blood relationship with the respondent. She could be mother, sister, daughter, or any other domestic relationship. it could be through adoption, live-in relationship, or women in bigamous relationship, or the victims of invalid marriage. So shared household. Now, again, the law defines shared household is, as a house where aggrieved woman and the man, the respondent, they are living in domestic relationship. So it may also imply a household where a woman has lived in a domestic relationship but has been thrown out. And it may be the household which could be owned by the respondent, or it could be a rented accommodation. It could be owned either jointly by the aggrieved person or respondent. So it could be anything, but the woman has a right to reside in this shared household. So that means a woman cannot be thrown out of this house. And in case if she is thrown out, she has to be, she can be brought back if she wants. The law does not alter the legality of the ownership or transfer of the ownership, but it only provides emergency relief to the victim. And for claiming ownership, a woman has to follow a separate legal procedure. So any woman who is in a domestic relationship with a man, and if she is subjected to violence, she can file an application for claiming this relief, that it's my right to reside in a shared household. Protection orders are again a woman can apply for. It provides relief in terms of the magistrate can prohibit the respondent from committing any act of domestic violence, or entering the place of employment of the aggrieved person, or if the woman has a child, the court can say that the respondent will not meet the child, or if he's trying to harm the child, or any form of communication could be stopped. And the magistrate can also say that the man cannot alienate the woman from any assets, or operating bank lockers or bank accounts. And so the woman can seek protection orders in that case. The residence orders, so magistrate can pass an order. He can say that he or she can say that restrain the respondent from dispossessing or distributing the possession of aggrieved person, and they can direct the respondent to remove himself from the shared household. So if he is committing the act of violence, the court can say that he should be removed and not the woman. And they can restrain the respondent from alienating or disposing of the household, and renouncing his rights in the shared household. Generally, these are the things which are happening, that immediately the man will say, okay, I don't own this house. So he can't say that. In the law, the provision is there, but yeah, in the practical implementations, we see a different kind of things. So if they have to vacate the house, then it is the duty of the respondent to provide the aggrieved person the similar kind of alternate accommodation, and the respondent could be asked to pay the rent for the same. Then the victim can also ask for monetary relief in terms of loss of earning, medical expenses, and maintenance could be given to the aggrieved person. And this is several cases can go on. So a person can file a case under section 125 of CRPC. A person can also file a case for maintenance under the Domestic Violence Act, or under the personal laws, whichever is applicable. Then the court can also give the reliefs in terms of custody orders. So the temporary custody of the children can be given to the victim, and or it may also order for the compensation in terms of loss or damage or injuries happen to the survivor or the victim. The timeline on the paper, it says 60 days. Yeah, surely, but in the courts, this is not happening. So this law is in addition to existing laws. And DIRs, when we call FIRs, first information reports, have to be filed in police station for any criminal offense. DIR, domestic incident report, has to be filed under this act. And we have special officers called protection officers being appointed by the state government as per the procedure by the law. And protection officers, they act as a link between the woman and the court, and they help women in making complaints, filing application, and obtaining all kind of medical aid, legal aid, counseling, and safe shelters and other kind of services. And they also assist the court in making this domestic incident reports, And the magistrate can ask the PO to assist him or her, and the POs may conduct home visit and make appropriate inquiry about salary, bank details, and all kind of other information. And the court can also help, ask the help of the protection officers to regain the custody of the children. So all kind of, then we have service providers. So the NGOs, the stakeholders, voluntary organizations, companies, they could be recognized as service providers, and their job is to help women to get a shelter home, to safe accommodation, medical aid, childcare, legal aid service, and they are duty bound to assist and support women in seeking relief. If a woman wants to file a complaint, she can approach to the protection officer, service provider, police station, or directly before the magistrate. And duties of all the stakeholders are to inform the aggrieved woman of her rights, and they are supposed to provide free legal aid, and to inform her that she has a right to file a complaint under Section 498A, beside getting these reliefs. And also there are other legal provisions in terms of maintenance, restitution of conjugal rights. A woman can file for divorce or custody, as as applicable to the personal law, which is so if as a Hindu woman, I can go to and file a case under the Hindu Marriage Act for divorce, for restitution of conjugal rights, for all kind of things. And division of matrimonial property is a provision which is there under the Hindu Maintenance Act, Section 27 deal with it, but Special Marriage Act has no such kind of provision. So again, we have to really see that how this matrimonial property provision is working in the courts. So also with this, I would like to end my presentation here. I'd like to stop here, and I just want to say that law is a site where marginalization is challenged and resisted by those who are the victims and survivors. So law provide a platform for women to really ask for rights. But again, the patriarchal discourse, on the other hand, it also works, and we have to really set in order that kind of hierarchy and domination which is existing in the court. So thank you once again. So over to you, Bhanvi.
Thanks a lot, ma'am, for such an enriching session. So now I would like to call Vibhuti ma'am to provide her views before moving to the Q&A session. Ma'am, you are on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Manvi. And Dr. Shalonigam has provided a very detailed and very exhaustive overview of how the Domestic Violence Act and in the private domain, and because it all started with women's movement slogan, personal is political, that was a time where every time the domestic violence cases were taken up, police would also call it andar ka mamla hai. This is an internal matter. That was the mindset. In fact, the picture of 1979 demonstration she showed, where the Sri Sangarsh had organized agitation, there was the feedback we used to get those days was that why are you interfering in the personal problem? Even the caste organizations, community leaders, even the political bodies, all of them none of them were ready to recognize the domestic violence as a social problem. It was so from there to coming out with the very comprehensive law. But the major problem is that though 3 types of strategies were used by the women's movement and the legal activism, was first of all the demand for the legal reforms and also the street fights. So using the communication alternate media such as songs and slogans such as brides are not for burning, or making a film. Meera Diwan had made a very effective film called Brides Are Not for Burning. Om Swaha play was enacted all over India. In Mulgi Jali Ho, that also had a very, very important episode on dowry. That was also big. The jatras were organized all over the country, in fact, states after states invited Shri Mukti Sangatna to enact it in Hindi, Gujarati, Marathi, and even in southern languages. So that kind of momentum that was generated, that had created a very new kind of a mood. And also the legal activism, Justice Bhagwati, when he announced that any woman just making a phone call, that her life is in danger, it would be converted into petition. Or just you write one postcard to the court, and court would treat that postcard as a petition. Some of the very revolutionary responses were there from the criminal justice system and also the legal luminaries. But what we see now, that now we have Domestic Violence Act, extremely effective if we implement it, because it has, as she showed, Dr. Shalini showed us that slide on service provider, clear-cut earmarking of the role for police, for shelter home, for legal system, one-stop crisis center. Everything has been defined, but the problem is that, first of all, very inadequate funds. Central schemes are there, but they are centrally sponsored scheme. If center gives certain percentage, 40%, 30%, 50%, according to the state's economic performance, the rich states would be getting less, while the poor states will get more percentage. But still the state governments have to give matching grant. And states after states are not ready to shell out money for the question of combating violence against women. So what happens that you don't get any, the law just remains on paper. It doesn't become effective. I was just day before yesterday, I was in Assam, and I was told by the grassroots activists that Swadhargraha are nothing, but they are just a paper organization. So there is nothing, no services in the name of one-stop crisis center. Government is claiming to have more than 212 one-stop crisis centers all over India. But why one-stop crisis center in certain states like Andhra or Mumbai? They are working very effectively, where the social work institutions, activists, and the criminal justice system, they work together. Today, a 79-year-old man tried to kill his 48-year-old wife and the 38-year-old, his own daughter, not the stepdaughter, just because she 3 hours before daughter's wedding. Can you imagine? And immediately Bombay police, the response was immediate. They rescued the life. There were a lot of injuries on the bodies of these 2 women. But at this kind of, the police did not wait till people died. And then now that awareness has come. So that is very important, that now how do we make the mindset of those who are implementing agencies? So the bureaucrats and police and that, because that in all previous 3 days also, the same thing came up, that now the consciousness is there, awareness has come. Women are also, even at a grassroots level, they are organized. But now how to change the mindset of those who consider this issue as a very serious and immediate, because justice delayed is justice denied. What we need is an immediate intervention. That is very important. Any type of drastic punishment you have, but when the law is not implemented, what is of use? So this is the kind of dilemma that we are facing. But I think it was a very important aspects that emerged out of this presentation. And I think we can, in discussion, we'll get more insights.
Thanks, ma'am. Now the floor is open for questions from the audience.
Are there any comments? Because there's nothing on the question box and nothing in the chat box, I think.
Yes, ma'am, but the audience can unmute themselves and ask the
Yeah,
questions
yeah,
if they have any.
Yes. They have not raised for it. I know.
Yes, ma'am.
Attendees' names are not visible. There are 30 attendees. No? Only 2 names are visible. Yeah. So can we move ahead? Hello.
So, ma'am, I would like to ask a question to ma'am then.
Yeah, please, Ms. Bhutti.
So, since ma'am, you have been into legal services for ages, I believe, do you ever feel any practical experience of whether people getting delay in the justice or any sort of stuff, like any practical experience from your side? We have been reading in the slides all about what has been written in the law, but it would be great if you can share any practical experience from your side.
Yeah, sure. See, the thing is that the law says 60 days, the timeline is 60 days, but, it's not being implemented within 60 days because sometimes the court issued the notice to the other party and the court keep on sending notices. And in one of my case, it took 1.5 years. The man even died during the proceeding. And then finally we receive is that the man has died because when the man went to Calcutta, the parties were living in Delhi. Then the man went to Calcutta after, we filed this case. And then the court keep on sending him notice. After notice, he didn't reply. And finally, one day, the court said that, the policeman from the Kerala, the local police station in Kerala, he just found that the man has died. So, the 60 days timeline has been extended to such a long time. So these kind of things are happening. And then also there are cases like, the shared household. Again, there are a lot of cases which are coming to, because if I want to stay in the shared household, how my husband, if he's a violent husband, and in-laws, they will try to, do all kind of things to throw me out. So in that case, a woman has to be strong. And in many cases, they say that, the parents have, अपना son or daughter को बेदखल कर दिया property से, so now they should go out, and then they file a case under Senior Citizen Maintenance Act. So all kind of things are happening in the courts. And if you talk about shelter homes and these kind of facilities, now shelter homes are not there specifically. If I talk about Delhi, while I was working with PUCL, we sent some of the interns to take up the survey of the shelter homes, and some of the addresses being given on the government website, they're completely wrong. There was nothing there, and the students told me, that ma'am, shelter home ka to wahan pe hai nahi kuch. So, all those kind of things are there. Shelter homes, if they are there, they're not non-existent. So in implementations, we're having, the law is very good on paper, but in implementation, as ma'am has also said, VIBHUTI ma'am, that, there are a lot of problems. So these kind of problems we are facing in implementation. So I think we as women, as organizations, as activists, we have to ask the government that you please implement this law properly. So even in the Dowry Prohibition Act, the law is there on paper, but then in the implementation, there are a lot of problems. The courts have also gone to the extent of, to saying that women are misusing and abusing this law. On the other hand, we as activists and lawyers, we found that there is no awareness. Sometimes women don't even know. So if you say women are misusing, who are the women who are misusing? Because as a woman, if I don't know my rights, I will go to the police station, I will go to my lawyers, and whatever they ask me, I'll do that. So when the court says that, you are the women are, implicating the old and, the younger persons in the family, it's not me as a woman who is doing that. As a victim, I don't even know that how this law is operating. It's my lawyer or the police or, other people are doing. So when you say about misuse of the law, when the courts are saying about this thing, and so, I really find it that this is something which is very, we have to really counter that, these kind of
And
things.
even the official statistics, hardly 2% are punished. Arrest is one thing, but then you are released on bail. And case goes on for 15 years, 20 years, 25 years and all. By then that woman loses everything. By the time she goes to collect back her dowry, there is nothing but torn saris and this thing. So, conviction rate is so low, no? Always the witnesses are harassed, they are blackmailed, they are this thing, and they turn hostile. And finally the culprit, he just gets released. even in cases of dowry. Vithita has a raised question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hi, ma'am. My question is a little different. I'm from literature background, so my question is related to trauma bonding, and which is one of the most common thing that we see happening in cases of domestic violence. Like, for instance, in the movie Darlings, we saw how the cyclical pattern of abuse makes the victim and the perpetrator, and like there is this reward and punishment thing that goes on. And when we talk about shelter homes in America and a lot of other places where these things are very much effective, they often say, the people who work in shelter homes, they often say that what happens is when the victims, the survivors come in, they often go back once they get in touch with the person who has been violating them. So how do we see this in India when emotional and mental health again is very much of a neglected topic, though it is gaining some kind of visibility now, but still it is a neglected topic. So how do we then think about this trauma bonding that happens in case of domestic violence?
Yeah, I was doing this research on, on this domestic violence issue. And I was trying to find out, how the recovery, how the courts or the protection officers or the entire system is helping the woman in recovery, emotional recovery, the psychological recovery, because you have been undergoing, through a lot of violence, and, you have to recover from that. But here the population of psychologists and psychiatrists, we have a very limited number of people who are there. And basically in terms of counseling, when we talk about that, there is a provision of counseling within the law. But again, I went to some of the counseling centers, and in the counseling centers, what they are doing is that they are forcing women to go back, to adjust to the relation within the violent marriage, because there are no other options outside being made available. So those kind of things are we have to do a lot of work in that area. The other thing is that the battered women syndrome and certain other kinds of legal kind of strategies are there, which are being used by the courts in the Western countries. If you talk about battered women syndrome, if you talk about Stockholm syndromes, they have done a lot of research. But in our country, we need to take up all those issues right now, because battered women syndrome is something like what our courts are doing, that our courts are taking a lot of things, okay, this British, this judgment is, American judgment is saying this Australian judgment is saying this, but they're not taking up these issues to resolve the cases of violence against women. So that is my, whole issue, that in the kind of male dominated courts, and they're not, again, the mindset is something which we have to really work on. And being a woman, there are a lot of problems within the judiciary. As a litigant, if I go, I may not get justice. So, and similarly, in terms of if I approach the medical system, again, there are stereotypical notions which are there, and which I say, we have to look into those kind of stereotypical notions which are there. For example, in the terms of custody, now they say that, okay, the woman has a right to of the custody of a child below 5 years generally, but now again, the court says no, even the doctor says that no, both the parents are necessary. But what we have seen as lawyers is that when women are they're getting visitation rights, when the men get visitation rights, the child is with me and my husband gets a visitation rights. So the child become a kind of a weapon that a man says that no, your mother is beating you. So emotionally torturing the child, using the child as a pawn in custody battles. And this issue has been raised again and again, but we couldn't find any solution till now. So we have to work on a lot of things in terms of domestic violence, emotional health, mental health, psychological recovery, and all those things we have to really work for.
During the pandemic, the highest number of the words which are used in the context of gender-based violence was gaslighting and victim blaming. Gaslighting is, even the educated earning women, they also face the gaslighting.
Ma'am, I have one more question. Like, there are different forms of violence. So how is violence against women in terms of workplace as well as the home different from that in practice as well as redressal?
Different forms of violence within homes also. We have different forms of violence, like, within the natal family, if like denial of education rights, denial of health, discrimination in terms of health education, and even denial of food. Those kind of discrimination are there, but we don't have laws. Similarly, if you talk about workplace, we have laws about sexual harassment, about rape, but there are a lot of other forms of discrimination. Like, other day I was watching a video about the staring. If a man is staring me and making me uncomfortable, for that there is no provision in the law. So similarly, if you talk about state-sponsored violence, again, state-sponsored violence we have discussed earlier also. So there are different forms of state-sponsored violence. So again, we have to see the context in which violence is taking place and how it has to be resolved. So we have talked about violence in the times of partition. We have a lot of literature available on that, but then again, we have to see that what is the context and how women are facing violence, and how the society and the state and the judiciary is reacting to it. So for some we have laws, for some we don't have laws. So again, that is something we have to. I think we have to do a lot of work in terms of that.
And systems and structures of institutionalized violence, child marriage, child trafficking, not taking consent in the name of culture and tradition, virginity test, and double standard of morality for men and women.
Yes, ma'am. Like you mentioned also that there has been delay in the implementation part. So I believe there are 650 to 700 session codes, and if I'm not wrong, 25 high courts. Then is there any system, like, is there any step that has been taken by the government to strengthen the judicial system and moreover to make the process more faster?
Yeah, some of the fast track courts have been created, but again, fast track courts have been created for specific purposes. So they are taking rape cases, but again, we have a lot of cases and we have less number of courts. And I think that is a kind of bone of contention with right now, which is if you see the between the judiciary and the government, and they are talking about, even the earlier judges, Supreme Court judges, they have raised this issue that we should have more. And sometimes even you say 25 high courts and lower courts, but many of the courts, they are the position is vacant, the judge's position is vacant. Or sometimes there are a lot of things which are coming out in the newspaper about corruption, about all of the kind of things. So again, the judiciary, the courts, you cannot see as something which is existing in vacuum. They are the part of the society, and again, there are a lot of problems with it. So they have created fast track courts, and how the quality of judgment, again, you have to monitor. But we are not spending anything on monitoring or evaluating the kind of the quality of judgments we are getting. Why the conviction rate is so low in violence against women cases. So all those questions are there, and we have to do a lot of research, a lot of work on that. And I think this is just a beginning that we are talking about it, and a lot of things have been done. But again, we have to do a lot of many other things.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. So our next expert for today's session is Dr. Keethi Bulinini. She is the president of Vasavya Mahila Mandali, Vijayawada. She will discuss on the topic of domestic violence, awareness of policies and laws in India. Over to you, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Namaste.
Namaste.
It's my pleasure to meet Professor VIBHUTI Patel and all others here to speak about the domestic violence. In the culture of India, speaking about domestic violence is, we think that it is a kind of a normalization the situation is, because that's never accepted as one of the things which has to be taken into consideration to complain it, or to think of the giving a complaint, or to go with a negotiation and respect and dignity of the woman. So now in the current days, we have to think of those things, even though we have laws, why it is not implementing, and what to do from the point of view, both the women, the victims, and also from the side of the perpetrators, we should plan it. So I'll just share in the meantime the screen. and it will go with a PowerPoint presentation where you will be seeing with regard to the what is domestic violence and how it is being not implemented, and we have different service providers and what are the current gaps in the service providers also. That's very, very essential, which we have to see it. So my presentation is basically focusing on domestic violence, awareness of policies and laws in India. So what is domestic violence? Because we always think that domestic violence is among the spousal violence. Means the legally wedded husband and wife. But we should see beyond that also. Like the live-in relations has also increased. So in our session of this 45 minutes, to understand the overview of the laws and policies on domestic violence in India and the challenges and gaps. What are the challenges and gaps we have? And also, what are the good practices? And also, finally, take-home messages. What are the take-home messages? Maybe 1 or 2 take-home messages you can take also. That makes a difference in improving the knowledge levels. That's what I feel in that. So what is the situation? Why to learn about domestic violence? Because day in and day out, we are all seeing at our neighborhood, at our homes or at our friend places that the women are being abused. 1 in 3 women in India is likely to have been subjected to intimate partner violence of a physical, emotional, sexual nature, reveals research published an online journal of epidemiology and community health. So it shows clearly that as per the research that among 3 women, at least 1 is facing the domestic violence. It can be of any form, physical, emotional, sexual, any nature. But at only 1 in 10 of these women formally reports the offense to the police or healthcare professionals. So you see that there is a lot of gap in between the incident happens and also the reporting. Why it is happening? Next. Let me go through the journey of a change leader. It's my own story that the journey of turbulence, the journey of victimization, the journey of re-victimization. Why it is all happening? Before going through the gaps and challenges, let us see in the case study itself that the basic challenges in our country are. I got married at the age of 21 after my post-graduation. I am coming from a socially and politically affluent family. Why I am telling is because we think that domestic violence is only among the poorer sections. No, not at all. It's not true. It's false. So at all levels, the women are facing domestic violence. So at the age of my 28, my husband met with an accident and he passed away, and the spot death, and he died. I am also in the same vehicle traveling. So what I faced as a widow in India is shame and guilt as a widow, discrimination of a widow, and also we do have an anxiety that how the life will be, and there is sexual advances for young widows. The same thing which all others face, I also have faced. And the re-victimization due to systemic gaps, attitudes, and perceptions. When I went to get my family member certificate at the Taluk office, they told that you need to get Panchanama, even though I showed that the marriage is registered. We always tell that you register the marriage so that it will be helpful for any kind of a legal action to be taken. But when I went as a widow and asked for the family member certificate, then the gender insensitive words which I got from the Tahsildar is that maybe you got registered the marriage, but we have to verify that your husband until his death is with you only, not married others. So this is what the systemic gaps are and systemic challenges which are giving a kind of a invisible scars in the lives of the woman. That's why nobody is willing to go to the service providers. And after that, I got married at the age of 36 and then faced severe physical, emotional, sexual, and financial violence I have faced. And why I am telling is, you all seeing me now, an empowered woman, how she has gone through the life, and I managed the life of
policy, such as laws about prevention of.
I managed the life for 7 years. So why do a woman bear the violence in the domestic corridors is she want to make her companionship and family to go together and to make it a success. Because India is known for its family institution. Previously, we have joint family system. Now we have nuclear family system. And also the woman coming out of the house, bearing all these things, she thinks that how I can sustain and how I can lead my life, how I can take care of my children. These are the things bother her so much. So that's why she always keep quiet and never open up. Although we have a lot of moments on speak up and many things, but this is all related to the family institution and also social stigmatization for the single woman when they come out of the marital knot. And what it made me to bounce back and became a trendsetter and motivator is the positive attitude. And whenever we face any kind of a trauma or tragedy or violence, the woman has to learn one thing is that what next and be positive. Because women come to us through our family counseling center with suicidal tendencies. So much depression, suicidal tendencies. We have a suicidal helpline, but how many people know about it, that helpline? The number where they can get a service. So these things I'm going to talk. In a broader sense, you have already have many sessions, and I want to give a gist of, we have a Domestic Violence Act and domestic violence counseling to both partners. Why I use the partners is, it might be husband or the intimate partner who is living in relations, and family as per the case, and the legal support to go to the court in the case of maintenance and get order to stay at husband's home also. Restitution of conjugal rights and maintenance in marital discard through courts. Hindu Marriage Act, and we have different things, and also section 125 CRPC and DV Act also. And we have number of personal laws related to the different religions, because we have numerous religions in India. So keeping in view all those things, we have different laws. So what are the challenges faced by the victims? In the domestic violence, lack of support systems at family, community, and systems level. The parents, they think that once they celebrate the marriage of the daughter, they think that she is belong to the other family. And here I always get confused, even at this age of 67 years, Why do married women change their family name? Maybe if we don't change the family name, maybe this situation will improve. That's what it bothers me so much, because I have gone through this and still going through it. And low self-esteem to speak up for domestic violence. Even we don't, no need to blame only the society, but from the women's side also, there is a low self-esteem and fear of report to police about re-victimization and shame. Because when you go to the police station, they immediately tell, yeah, it's all very common. Your husband is only beating, no? So that normalizing nature among the police and other service providers is also becoming a re-victimization, and sometimes they use harsh words, which is again traumatizing them. And the family members tell always to get adjusted to keep family honor. Okay, your husband has beaten, no, get adjusted. Yes, it's only your husband, no. And never come outside of the house, so the family honor will get disturbed. And gender insensitivity by service providers. How many of the women with the domestic violence are going to the healthcare providers? That's a big challenge in India. How many of the women victims of violence are going to the mental health providers? There's again a stigmatization as mental health, which is a negative connotation we have in India with regard to mental, and delayed justice and non-implementation of orders such as maintenance. Just yesterday only we have completed our second panel discussion at Bhubaneswar, that is maintenance orders issued by the courts on different laws, whether it be section 125 CRPC or the domestic violence laws or the personal laws, are not at all being implemented. So it is various service providers, they are not doing it and have to roam about to different courts for a divorce and restitution of conjugal rights and child guardianship and maintenance. How many courts the woman will go? And she will be losing the days for wages for it. And many times we are seeing that she is thrown out of the jobs because monthly 4 or 5 times she is taking a leave to go to the court. And also in the courts, we don't have a video conferencing system. Thank God in the COVID days, we have a video conferencing. Now back to normalcy again. So that's why these are all big challenges. Even the woman goes to the court, we don't have a child care centers in the courts. That's a basic thing where, and also toilet facilities. And they are so tuned and worried, they tell us that whenever our name comes, when they will call in the court, so we should be so cautious and we can't even go for the toilet. So these are the challenges. Maybe what I am telling is from the bottom level and the community level issues I am telling it, because we should not ignore these things. So what are the maintenance laws? And suggested measures are separate law to be enacted. Because if we have to make the courts, okay, number of courts has to be increased, number of manpower has to be increased, and the kind of logistics has to be increased. And to invest on that, do the judiciary is ready to do it with regard to financial investment on these things. And also, that's why what we suggest is a separate law to be enacted, where we did a study on it for 5 years, and a study report is also published. So our session is a quasi-judicial body with a magistrate, collector, and women expert should be there. Why we are suggesting is, years together, there is a law which tells in the maintenance that within 60 days, the interim order has to come. But is it coming? No, not at all. Not even 600 days. Maybe you can even think of 6,000 days like that. So that's why we need a speedy justice and basic right to living, which is given by the Constitution. The women, children are foregoing. So all maintenance cases to be dealt for speedy justice, and it is not investigation, it is the inquiry procedures only and no court trials. And within 60 days, interim order, and 180 days, final from the date of the application. It is not from the date of the numbering. Because once a victim goes to the court and submit an application to get the numbering, it is taking time. So we should take into consideration only the date of application, so that we can easily understand that how much time it is going. Because, and the last one is monitoring mechanism has to be there. Because currently in the maintenance laws, the woman, the judge gave the orders, yes, but there's nobody to see whether the person is paying it or not. So in the absence of the monitoring mechanisms, the maintenance laws currently are zero from a survivor point of view. So we need to have a survivor-centric policies with a new outlook, and also what we are suggesting is after centuries. It seems that the last amendment for section 125 CRPC is 1886, I think. So after centuries, we have to all come together and do it. And a new thinking process is also required. Divorce, restitution of conjugal rights, child guardianship to be under one section, so that the woman victim appears one time only. So currently she is spending more time going to the courts, and even for the lawyers also, each one is a separate case. So the women are unable to pay the legal expenses. And at the same time here, I want to tell that we do have a district legal services authority. But in our recent study, it came to know that many of them are not aware of these legal services. They just go to the communities and build awareness, but the survivors should know that what kind of a services it is available. So G20 is an opportunity to be used for bringing changes in laws and policies that are not survivor-centric. So what I suggest to all the people here is we can send the policies and laws required from a survivor-centered point of view. That's very important, because we have to build a resilience among our survivors so that they can go to the courts. It is not the court, now the body, so that they can represent. Here I can give you an example, like child welfare committees we have under the JJ Act, Juvenile Justice Act. So where the complainant go directly and talk with the body, and the orders were issued within 2-3 meetings, even at one time also. So that's why we need to think out of box, and also the gaps to be filled and the challenges which the women and children are facing has to be solved at the earliest in India. And also relief and rehabilitation to go together for the women victims. What we do is we think of only the going only for relief, but the rehabilitation of the victim also is very, very important. Like whether it is required her skilling or livelihood support, credit support, or education for her children. So all these things are very essential. currently where the women are foregoing it, because the current services which we have is, as per the laws, are mostly after the incident happened also for a counseling and legal services. Next. So we have Nirbhaya Fund. Post 2012, after the Nirbhaya gang rape, as we all know, a dedicated fund was set up in 2013 with the focus on implementing the initiatives at improving the security and safety of women in India. So this fund was called Nirbhaya Fund. Nirbhaya meaning fearless, the pseudonym given to the gang rape victim to conceal her identity. An empowered committee was set up on 26/10/2015 to appraise and recommend proposals to be funded under Nirbhaya Fund. So, who will get these funds? It grants funds to central and state government to take up the initiative relating to the security and safety of the woman. Next. Even then also, the Nirbhaya Fund, what it has to be spent, it's not being spent. So it is underspent. And one more initiative which we all hear is one-stop centers. So why, and also popularly it is known as Sakhi's one-stop centers. This is what the logo which you are seeing, that Sakhi one-stop centers, and it's being initiated by Ministry of Women and Child Development, and it is a centrally sponsored scheme for setting up the one-stop centers as a sub-scheme of umbrella scheme for National Mission for Empowerment of Women, including Indira Gandhi Maitritva Sahayog Yojana, started from in 2015. So this one-stop centers, what is its services it does it? Next. What services it is giving and what is the objective of this? So that Sakhi one-stop centers objective is to provide integrated support and assistance to women affected by violence, both in private and public spaces under one roof. Because when we see the domestic violence, it is only counseling and legal service. And that too, there is no residential services. But here, it is an integrated support being provided, and also to facilitate immediate, emergency and non-emergency access to a range of services, including medical, legal, psychological, and counseling support under one roof to fight against any forms of violence against women. So the thrust of it is very comprehensive and also in a bunch of services under one roof. So here the medical services are also included, and here the police services are also included. So the target group are mostly women affected by violence, whether it be rape cases, sexual assaults, any of these kinds. So the target group, they can reach to the one-stop centers. There is no requirement of any kind of a referral from any other person. So they can go it straight away, walk in the one-stop centers. Next one. So these centers are how many we have and what we are doing there. So over 6,22,000 women till September 2022 have been assisted by 730 one-stop centers in 36 states and union territories in India. That's what the current, we have 730 one-stop centers and started up till September 2022. We have started this scheme in 2015, and in a phase-wise manner, it is enhanced and located in district headquarters, but normally in the hospital premises. Sorry for the spelling mistake. And the team of the one-stop centers is the center administrator who manages the center and coordinates the work, because there are a lot of services are under one roof, and caseworkers are there who manages the case and filing and all those things. And medical personnel to deal with the medical issues like any wounds or anything if it happens, they take an emergency like first aids, and if any kind of a rape and all those things happens also, under the medical legal case, they take the steps as required. And the police facilitation officer is also available in the same place. Because normally, if we have to talk to the police or to call to the police, again to file an FIR or to give the complaint or anything for police services, again they have to approach them or refer them. But here, the police facilitation officer is available in the one-stop center. And psychosocial counselor is available, legal counselor is available, security guard and IT staff and multi-purpose health worker is also available. So these are the team members that are available in 730 one-stop centers throughout India. And the services are emergency response and rescue services, medical assistance, assistance of women in lodging FIR. Normally, the FIR is filed then and there itself as the police staff are also engaged there. And psychosocial support counseling is the first step after the caseworker takes, and legal aid and legal counseling, and temporary shelter is provided for 6 days. And why I'm telling 6 days is within the 6 days, if any kind of a medical support is required, the medical team will take it. And if FIR to be filed, the police will do it, and the counselor will design it and discuss with that victim and what kind of a life she wants and how she wants to go ahead. So it is like a temporary shelter. Then they will be either referred to the Swadhar homes, or currently we have Ujjwala cum Swadhar homes, and then otherwise some other centers or reunion with the family also happens. And video conferencing facility is also available from the one-stop center. There is no need for them to go to the court, and from there itself, they can have the video conferencing facility, because when they apply after the FIR, if anything to be based on the emergency, the video conferencing facility is also available. And the second kind of service which we are having is, as we already learned, that Domestic Violence Act is framed in 2005. So it is any woman facing domestic violence. It's a free of cost services, even one-stop centers also. No need to pay. Even in DV cells also, it is there, and counseling and legal services are provided. It is managed under the Department of Women and Child Development by the district level officer. And every district in India is having a domestic violence cell. Here, let me also see, keeping in view my experience visiting to many states. In some of the states, domestic violence cells and one-stop centers are running in separate places in the districts. But in some of the states, which I have seen in Telangana, where both the domestic violence cells and one-stop centers, they have merged it and going together. Whereas in Andhra Pradesh, they are of 2 separate entities. Next. Is domestic violence case criminal or civil? The determination of rights under Chapter 4 of Domestic Violence Act does not result in penal consequences so as to term it as criminal proceedings. Thus, proceedings under Chapter 4 of the Domestic Violence Act are civil in nature. The currently Domestic Violence Act, it is a civil in nature. Yesterday also, one of the lawyers is telling, when we are talking of section 125 CRPC or the maintenance, he is telling that we should always see it as only an economic aspect of the issue. So it's a civil in nature, not a criminal nature. So there lies the thing that the issue is being lightened. And legislature set a time limit of 60 days for a domestic violence case to be disposed as prescribed under section 12(5) of Protection of the DV Act. So these time limits are there, but it's only on paper, but in execution, it's not happening, whatever is the law. And the third kind of service I want to tell you is the Legal Services Authorities Act 1987, which came into existence. It's an act to constitute legal services authorities to provide free and competent legal services to the weaker sections of the society to ensure that opportunities for securing justice are not denied to any citizen. As I do not have the money, I am unable to get the justice. No. So to make it available to all the people, the legal services, those who cannot afford for the lawyers to pay, they can approach the Legal Services Authority. And the local Legal Service Authority also organize Lok Adalats to secure that the operation of legal system promotes justice on the basis of equal opportunity. It enacted by the Parliament in the 38th year of the Republic of India. The state government shall, in consultation with the Chief Justice of High Court, constitute to be called the District Legal Services Authority for every district. So in each state, as per the directions of the state government in consultation with the Chief Justice of the particular state High Court, every state is having the Legal Services Authority at the state level, at the district level, and mandal level also we have. So they have a lot of powers which they can do it. So the District Legal Service Authorities constitute every district to implement legal aid programs and schemes in the district. The district judge of the district is its ex officio chairman. We know that we have a victim compensation schemes where if a woman faces rape or any kind of acid attacks, these things and human trafficking, we have victim compensation. So how do we get this victim compensation is once the police file an FIR, and with that FIR, the letter is submitted to the DLSA, District Legal Service Authority chairperson, then he will process it, and as per the law, the victim compensation is also provided by the District Legal Service Authority. So the Legal Services Authority is having lot of powers and also lot of services they can do for the common woman when they are unable to take the burden of payment of fees to the lawyers and all those things. So let us promote the DLSAs wherever we are having and also meet them and know more about it. And creating legal awareness among the general public is one of the mandate of the District Legal Service Authority, and they also conduct legal aid clinics with taluks and legal support and protection centers also. And there are a total of 676 District Legal Services Authorities in the country. So almost every district in India we have. So the next one which I am talking is Women Commission. We all know National Women Commission, and it's having its own separate state bodies also. So National Women Commission helpline number, I am giving it 7827170170. It's a helpline. Anybody can call this and give a complaint and leave it to it so that they call you back. That's what the helpline number is given for NCW. And NCW is located in the national capital in New Delhi, and every state is having a State Women Commission. And there is a separate cell to receive complaints related to violence against women and counseling is also available both at the National Women Commission and also at the State Women Commission. So what are the helpline numbers? Maybe the font is very small, but I'll read it. One of the number we all know and from childhood is 100. So this is a police helpline, and also when it comes to the National Police Helpline number, 112 is also available. One is 100, other one is 112, and for senior citizens helpline, it is 1091 or 1291. Why I'm telling helpline numbers is many a times when somebody asks us, or when it is required for us also, we just peep into something or the other. There's no need. It should feed it in your own mobiles and help the others, or whenever it is required for us, use it. And suicide prevention helpline number is 1-800-273. And anyone can access 181. That's a toll-free helpline to any woman can use. You can broadly call it a women's helpline. 181. So now let us hear again. The police helpline is 100, and the National Police Helpline is 112, and senior citizens is 1091 or 1291, and suicide prevention helpline is 1-800-273, and the women's helpline is 181. If we can take these things as a take-home message, it gives a lot of solace for many people, which we can do it. And tips to deal with emotional abuse and suicide helpline in India. So I just want to tell you that how to deal with emotional abuse, work on an exit plan, how to come out of it, build a support network. And also, many a times what happens is the person thinks, stop blaming by themselves. Why it happens to me only, what I did, what mistake I did. No. When I came out of my marital knot after my domestic violence, I never feel that's blaming myself. No. I tried my level best to make him to understand what is the importance of a companionship and also what is a family. He could not understand it. That's fine. So like that, we should have not blaming others and make your mental and physical health a priority. Very, very important. And establish boundaries with the abuser. If the abuser is there, try to see that when you are going to hurt, don't take a trial, because sometimes we are seeing that they are killing also and making many things. So that's why I always suggest you that you be cautious when anything physically, when they're damaging you or creating a lot of abuse or violence on you. Be careful and never go into controversies and establish your boundaries with the abuser. That's very, very important. And the good practices are awareness on laws and services, and also engage the community. We have women self-help groups, engage them, give them the knowledge, because they are at the community level, and build a support system through the women SHs, and also develop a positive attitude. Those who are all here, we are all no need of a professional social workers. We need to be a peer counselors and be positive, because our grandmothers and grandfathers, they are not counselors. They didn't pass any degrees, but they are able to counsel when we get the problems. And do a SWOT analysis of the victim and build a path for progress to move further. That's very important. Let the victim identify their SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and they build a path for progress to move further. Because otherwise they will be in the box of the problem only, but they should also think of the progress. That's very important. So last but not the least, in India, not less than single digit figure, only the court cases are being taken, and especially among the domestic violence cases, only single-digit number are standing in the court. Why? They all take in the mobiles, videos, audios, and pictures and all that, but keep in the same phone, and it can be tampered or it can be damaged by someone. So VMM has launched a pilot innovative initiative of mobile application victims recorder. Next slide. I'll just show you that is a safe locker in cloud. Victim record is a proof recording and uploading valid app for women. In case any incident happens that is related to safety and security, they can upload real time and recorded or saved proofs related to that. It will be stored on cloud server, which helps them to retrieve it whenever it is necessary. And there is no delete button in it. And you all can see it, because we'll copy it and keep it on the chat box also, or anywhere the PPT will be shared to you all. You all can access it, and whoever is, I always tell that we don't know when we get the problem. That's why better keep our records in the cloud, which is a secured form. And now we are going in it's only pilot phase now, which we are doing it, and we are going into a wider circle, and this is first of its kind in India. Next time. And this is how you can upload the cases. This is the victim's recorder, and you can see case by case. You can give the case number, only somebody can see it. Even our admins also can see the numbers. And now you see, add proof for the case ID 28. There's no name at all. So that's why it is only temporarily, the name will go, but it's not visible. It's only the number. And it is safe and secure. Next. And for the further readings, I have just given 6-7 references, which you can go through it. Whoever is interested, you can go through it. Next. This is what, and you can take my mobile number, and we have a family counseling center, caller tele-counseling also. That's a tele-counseling number, and which is in the bottom of it, and the mobile number is that one, so that anybody can call that number. And now it's visible in the red color. We have Vasavia Counseling Center. Anytime, anybody can call. And my mobile and WhatsApp number is also given, and whoever wants, they can call it. And because now I am in the meeting, I am not taking my calls. So like that, if it is there, you can send me the WhatsApp, or you can send the email ID also. Thank you so much. That I want to tell all of you that this is not a training session, but it's a journey of life of every woman, which we see day in and day out, because my day starts with a call from a victim and day ends with it also. So that's why we all should be very, very patient enough. If somebody calls us, so we should be patient enough and give them a solace. That's very, very important. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. It was really an enriching session. Now I would like to call Vibhuti ma'am to share her views.
Ma'am, it's muted.
Thank you, Dr. Kirti Volineni. You gave such an inspiring talk, and I think such a candid, you personified feminist slogan, personal is political. That how from your personal journey of first being victim and then survivor and then empowered woman, and not only you did not just empower yourself, but now you are empowering thousands of women as a person, and also from the kind of knowledge resources you have generated. And today's your talk of 360-degree view of domestic violence, when you started with how society has normalized domestic violence, and now women are coming, and women and the Vasavyas contribution, not only in Visakhapatnam, but all over India, you are making change by bringing in new schemes and new programs and new way of dealing with the legal system and using information technology also for empowerment of women. I think it's a marvelous and it's extremely inspiring. It enhances one's confidence that we can do. If we put our heads together, we can find solution to this this thing. And I think this is our experience also, that courts not having toilet facility, no canteen, you are there for days together. I remember going with Flavia in a court with 3 small children, and in the court whole day you are there. There is nothing, not even drinking water. Now at least they have some, I think, cooler days there. That is there. But I think courts also need to be sensitive. And even if there is a Jane's toilet is there, which is stinking, filthy, not clean, but women's toilet, they are hardly they are there. So I think this basic day-to-day, because when you go to court, how do you, or in a family court, right from the gatekeeper who demands 50 rupees, then the clerk who demands 500 rupees, and by the time your case comes, woman is completely robbed of this. And that's why in Bombay, we had to form Women Litigants Association. We had so many demonstrations in front of family courts, no? So that these things. And the counselor, I think your experience also, like our experience is also counselor using the language of gaslighting and also victim blaming. I think so. What we need is that intensive and extensive training for judges and counselors and legal administration also, right from the clerks to watchmen and liftmen, all of them, they need to be sensitized. So which was happening in 80s with limited resources. There was no gender budgeting, but still it was happening. No, the police academy was doing it at all levels. So I think it's a question of political will. If there is a political will, there are resources, and criminal misutilization or non-utilization of Nirbhaya Fund itself shows that where we have reached. And I think the takeaway, there are 2 questions for you in the chat box, and also one comment in the chat box, and 2 questions, which say that what are the takeaway resources? I think your lecture was full of takeaway resources, and even the resources, the links you have given, and the resources all of us have provided for last 4 days session are also, they are the takeaway. So if you open the links, you know that there are training modules, and there are legal step-by-step how to approach the legal system. And I think yours made it really complete in terms of all aspects of the dealing with the legal system, and also. Thank you. Thank you. There are 2 questions, ma'am, for you in question box.
Ma'am, can we take
Malavika Dar.
They will ask?
They will ask, and they have written also, Malavika Dar and Rishma Khan.
Somebody asked that please send all the PPTs and record videos of all the speakers.
All authors have agreed to send. So we are ready to send. Yeah.
Question and answers, chat box.
Yeah. Before that, I think there is one comment about the takeaways. That shall we get the takeaway resources? That is also there. But there are 2 questions. One by Malavika Dar. How do you acknowledge domestic violence apart from physical violence? Also, what would be the steps to handle it, since domestic violence is mostly only talked about when, and if it is physical, when it becomes very visible physically? So that is the first question.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That a very valid question, because visible scars only we see in India. We are not bothered about the invisible scars. The invisible scars create a lot of damage, and even a permanent damage for the people, especially the women, those who are facing the domestic violence. So that's why when we are designing the interventions by the government or by the civil society or by the corporates, we should also think that the emotional and mental well-being damages which are also creating. And in our country, we don't talk the sexual abuse happening in the marital relations. We never talk of it because we think that it is normalized. As a husband, the wife has to obey it even when she is in the periods also. Because women are not talking these things. So as I know it is very, very sensitive, but during the counseling, we should talk of these things. And prior to that, currently we are also designing a intervention where we are piloting that in schools, we should give gender empowerment for both boys and girls and all genders. That's very, very essential, so that we should talk of the prevention more, and also at least next generation, let us build a violence-free society. That's very important. And the next one is Rimsha Khan. Ma'am,
Yeah.
as you are in the
Sorry to interrupt you, ma'am.
Rishma Khan.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, ma'am. Ma'am, can we take all the questions at the end of the session?
This is the end of the session, no?
End of the
No, ma'am,
session.
Professor Vijay Lakshmi ma'am has also joined.
Acha, she's come. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
So now I would like to invite Professor Vijay Lakshmi Nanda ji for a special remark. She is the principal and professor of political science, Miranda House, University of Delhi, and we are honored, ma'am, to have you this evening. Over to you, ma'am.
Am I visible? Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Patel, Dr. Kirti Bolineni. I was able to hear some of the talk, especially on domestic violence, and I enjoyed it. I do have, the discussions on reproductive rights, which I would like to share, and we can take it from there. Is my screen visible to you?
Yes.
Yes. So I am going to look at, and this is something that we have discussed earlier, so Professor Patel has to hear this time and again, but I believe the team here, the participants may be different. So I'm looking at the understanding on reproductive rights, and where do we contextualize the idea of gender-biased sex selection, and what are the dilemmas of feminist politics on this? I will run through the slides quickly so that we can have a longer conversation on it. I will keep my discussion short, but I hope that some of the issues that I'm raising are things that have already been discussed with the participants. Just trying to move the slide, just a minute. Why is it not? Is it, are you able to see the screen? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about what is popularly known as female feticide, but we are not using the term because of the way in which it overlaps over the right to abortion. This is a cover of The Economist, sometimes in 2015, where it talked about this issue, and they are calling it gendercide, which amounts to murder, and they're also using pink shoes to depict the girl child, and they're talking about 100 million baby girls, meaning they are talking about the the gender-biased sex selection in India and parts of Taiwan, Japan, China, as well as certain parts of Russia, Vietnam, and other parts. While they are making this particular judgment, which is basically a global understanding, it is quite alarming that The Economist is not making sense of it in terms of women's rights. And this is what the feminist politics brings to you. I would like to show you the sex ratio of India. We still do not have the child sex ratio of India of present times because the census has not taken place. NFHS and others are showing improvement, but we have seen a decline till 2011. We hope it will improve. There are good policies and programs by the government of India, but I am contextualizing it in terms of the daughter aversion that we see. The terms that were used, one was female feticide, which is basically getting rid of the female fetus because you don't want to have daughters. The other term used by the feminist movement was sex selective abortion, which means that you detected the sex of the fetus and you brought about abortion, but it is not overlapping over the right to abortion, which is women's right to safe and legal abortion. Then, many talked about pre-birth elimination of females, eliminating females before they are born. Or son preference, which is the larger context in which this is born, that people want to have more sons than daughters, at least one son, at most one son. And then the term that Mary John and others have used, which is daughter aversion, that not only do we prefer sons, we hate daughters. So is that really the truth? Although we can, it's ambivalent. Sometimes we are a son preference society. Sometimes we could be aversion towards daughters. That's something we need to look at. Now, reproductive rights or reproductive autonomy is something that India is a signatory through the CEDAW or the Beijing platform or other concept. We are all there. We agree on it, that freedom of choice in reproductive matters is necessary. However, what are its legal implications? What is its value? We do not have an understanding of it. In India, we still have a certain amount of understanding derived from the women's movements, but I think in the rest of the world, especially in the US, it is very, very regressive. So there are different kinds of discourses around this idea of not wanting to give birth to daughters. I mean, that is basically what it is. So is it an equality discourse? Are we talking about gender equality? Do we have a balanced family, a boy and a girl? Or are we talking about the fact that number of girls are decreasing, so let us have more daughters? Is it about a correction that we need? Is it a criminal idea, or is it an idea of justice? Is it about rights, or is it about ethics? There are various such discourses across our understanding on this issue. In India, we have very good policies and programs around this on the supply side, which means the supply side refers to the kind of technologies available. We don't call them murder, we don't call them anything, but at least the technology is available to dispose of daughters. Number one, it was amniocentesis. Professor VIBHUTI Patel and others, Sir Amar Jasani sir, they have worked on this through Sehat. Amniocentesis, chorionic villus biopsy, and of course, the most sanitized one, ultrasound, where you can determine the sex of the fetus, and if found female, you can get rid of it. Of course, for that, the supply side, which is unethical use of new reproductive technologies, you have an act, a law, the PNDT Act, which is Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques, Regulation and Prevention of Misuse, which was later the preconception and the prenatal diagnostic technique. Because not only were you using ultrasound to detect the sex of the fetus to find if it is female or not, you were also using preconception stage technologies, whether it was some sperm separation or surrogacy or whatever you call it, in order to be able to have a son. The main objective was that. So on the supply side, the government policy, helped by groups like Sehat, Masoom, VIBHUTI Patel, ma'am, the whole work in Maharashtra led to the PNDT Act. The government implemented it. PCPNDT also, through various struggles, I was also a part of it. We brought in this act, and this act was a support, was meant to be a support to women, so that they are able, the focus was on sex determination, so that they are able to retain the medical, termination of pregnancy act, and there is no overlap. The women's movement made that possible. Then we move to the demand side. The supply is unethical medical practitioners. So that was a process in which, if they were found to be doing it, this is a non-bailable, compoundable act. There's a huge punishment there. On the demand side, it is gender discrimination. So there are policies and programs, Ladli schemes, many financial schemes, laws. Now you have the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. That is how the policy response continuum has been. Now, the state, how does the state see women? Where do we exist within the constitutional? Of course, we have the rights, the equal rights, but you will see us as litigants, those who are questioning or asking, because India in that sense is a gender-friendly law system that we have, or we are supplicants. We do it, or we are reformist, we try to change, we try to bring about reforms, or we cooperate with the state, or we collaborate with the state. That is how we have been working. Now the point and the dilemmas that I'm raising. Abortion. Should we talk about the fetus rights, or should we talk about women's rights? Am I
Ma'am, we are losing your connection a bit.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you, yes.
Yeah. So losing connection.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I have switched off your video. So
That is better.
Yeah,
So is it monetary incentives or rights-based approach? Is it with the state or without the state? Now, some feminists are believe that we need to create better laws. Domestic Violence Act was made very supportive, sexual harassment laws, while some others like Flavia Agnes, Ratna Kapoor, Nivedita Menon said that gender. We see women as, is it about pro-life or pro-choice? So while we that are made on this issue, and how do people depict this? What are the ways in which they depict this? So they are depicting it as, just take a look at this. बहुत सरल है, पेट में मुझ पर करना वार है, हिम्मत है ए माँ मुझे पैदा करके मार. So they are literally showing the woman as rather than just focusing on fetal rights. Then I'm bringing you to a particular exercise that took place in Punjab. And in this place, there was a deputy commissioner who tried his best to bring an end to sex-selective abortion. He did a number of activities because Punjab was the worst affected area. And in that, he thought the best way was to monitor the pregnancies of women. And if they were found to have carried out sex-selective abortion, there were different methods of shaming them. But while they were being shamed, the right to privacy, there was a fear, there was a question, and even if it was a miscarriage, it was believed that they had done selective abortion. So while you try to control it, you bring about a punitive measure, this is a problem. So, I am just putting these dilemmas in front of you to understand how we work. How do we sustain our energies? This is one. Then are women to be seen as active agents or are they passive victims? That's a very important question. This is my friend, my dear friend, and who passed away. Actually, these are her two daughters who are now about 19 years old or 18 years old. And thing that she got out of this, and she finally, due to her long drawn struggle with the act and going to the court for almost 13 to 14 years, two wonderful daughters who are being brought up by her parents. But this is also the story. If we come to the rights at the ethics space, so you bring about a number of, short-term, long-term cash transfers. There are thousands of
Additional.
bring about any change, like to give families a certain amount of money as a scholarship for their daughters so that they save them. So people have said that this may be a problem because you are just ending up creating a certain, resource more stronger, more comprehensive act. They found that they would spend it on, because 18 years is when families, it matured, which was about, I think they received a certain amount of money, they would spend it on there. And this was meant for poor families. Now, this is the important one. So a study that I did showed that while you could get some advantage in the second born daughter, it will weaken that, daughters are liabilities, and how do we need to look at it? And also the way in which marriage, even today, the way marriage is being seen, we are not questioning dowry anymore. The women's movement seems to have become quieter on the front. Really bringing about security, confidence, bargaining power, and increased voice in community, that's not happening. So do we go with the state or not? Now, this the understanding is I am bringing in here, and I've been speaking a lot on this issue, that the two-child norm, which exists for Panchayati Raj elections and MCD elections in various parts of the country, this is in Orissa, many people cannot participate because women, when by the time they come to politics, they have already had more children. And this is a story of Bimala, where she said she was not allowed to participate because of a two-child norm. And she kept saying that if you're talking about daughters, I have 3 daughters, I should have been incentivized for that. But it is, the other person got it. And so what communicated to them. So what do we need to do? So I am proposing here a syncretic feminist aspect, which is that just like Professor Vibhuti Patel can bring in a socialist feminist argument, I can bring in a liberal feminist argument, Dr. Kirti can bring in and we build voice and agency. And I'm mentioning here work of Spivak, Fraser, Nancy Fraser's, just that we come together under one thing, and we may have different views, but we bring about a certain understanding that gender equality is everybody's battle. And it is called a curb cut feminism by Brooke Ackerley, which is like a jugaad feminism. We come together and we believe in an intersectionality. And here the intersectionality is the most vulnerable person is actually the intersectionality of age here, the girl child. And how can we come together for the girl child is most important. This is a UNFPA understanding of it. And they have said that we should have a financial standing. So within employment, within tax, within credits, build in more support, bring about greater autonomy. So you can make the laws work for women. I mean, if Meetu fought a 14 years battle, I was with her throughout. I've been on many other fronts with women, but that was my biggest eye opener. Nothing came out of it. So what is this impunity that men have, having, and also safe public spaces? Great, because that is from where the son preference arises. But saying that daughters are better carers of parents, I think that again defeats the purpose. We are giving a caregiving role to the daughter. Why should we do that? Let it be based on reciprocal obligation, love. I mean, why cannot be that I love my parents, so I will do it irrespective of whether I'm a daughter or a son. So they cannot be the only source. So there should be social care. It is a must. It is a must now, especially with the way people, infertility rising or children moving abroad, both daughters and sons. people are dependent on caregivers. So let it be social care as a must. And we need to have social protection schemes. We need the state. The state can be a site for struggle over interpretation of needs, allocation of Ella Kabir here. So there would be greater equitable. And here Alison Dagger said that all of this cannot be blamed on the countries like non-Western cultures, that, we are somehow very backward and we do all this. These are transnational gender disparities. And there are transactional cycles of gender vulnerability. We did have son preference, but these techniques
Came from.
which came from the US and tried to build a market here because they knew that sex selection would be with you, more conferences, more campaigns, where we should get together globally to question it. So we go beyond the state. So and Anupama Roy says that we should have a shared language, and we should always have that shared language so that we can have a commitment to democracy and equality. So that is all I need to say here. I'm stopping sharing. I'm sorry about some of the glitches that may have occurred and due to.
Thanks a lot, ma'am, for your presence and very enriching and a knowledgeable presentation. So I would request Vibhuti ma'am to share her views and then we will move to the Q&A session.
Thank you, dear Hanvi.
Yeah, I think Dr. Vijayalakshmi Nanda has brought in the very important area of domestic violence, that is son preference and the aversion to daughter, and what kind of dynamics are functioning in today's context, because where the science and technology is misused for femicide. And she brought in the whole discourse that we need to really have a transnational discourse on it, because wherever Indians are, they are using sex selection, and the kind of programs which the state has taken after 2001 census, which showed deplorably low child sex ratio, and in terms of Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, or PCPNDT Act, and how it is implemented differentially in different states according to the sensitivity of the bureaucrats and the legal machinery. They decide the standards, because when we did the survey in Mumbai, the rich, the South Bombay, the richest people did not want a single daughter, because they said our property will get divided. Our son-in-law will take away half the property. And then middle class did not want it because of ostentatious marriages. And the same thing happened at the working class, where they said that now the marriage expenses have increased. So the only solution, that where there is an agency of girls, and now you see increasing number of girls, even in tier 2, tier 3 cities, even in the rural areas, they approach the district authority to prevent this kind of a dowry based marriages. And the way campaign over last 40 years has popularized certain slogans that this sex determination is nothing but elimination of women, or destroy dowry, not daughters, daughters are not for slaughter, or empower women, say no to sex discrimination. And sex determination is nothing but sex discrimination. So I think even at a popular level, it has reached. And I think so many state governments have also started popularizing, like in BEST in Bombay, if you see in the rickshaws and BEST, they have said to do sex selection is a crime. So attachment of criminality. So I think these are some of the small steps that have happened. But what I see is that new consciousness among girls. Even if you go to school, they know about PCPNDT Act, they know about declining child sex ratio. They, even if you have essay competition or poster competition or poetry competition. So many girls write about these issues. So I think that is the new mood, and I see future only with them, that they are the ones who are going to decide. The way like Malala, she stood up for women's education. So it is our girls who are going to decide to fight against the kind of very misogynist practices that are existing. But I think this makes this today's three presentation and has made the focus on domestic violence complete, because this was one thing that how science and technology, because generally we always linked science and technology with modernization and progressive ideology and advancement of civilization, but how it can also be misused because the patriarchal value system are so powerful that it, like an octopus, it adjust to any kind of new changes that take place. And that's why we can never be complacent. We have to constantly keep our eyes and ears and mental fitness alert about these kind of newer forms of violence that emerge. And we should be always respond to this. We can't take it lying low. So that is what the lesson of your lecture is. Thank you. There is one more question in the question box.
Yes, ma'am. I would like Rimsha Khanji to unmute herself and ask her question. And all those participants who want to ask the questions, kindly raise your hand. Rimsha Khanji.
Rishma Khanji, are you there?
No.
Hello, can you unmute and speak, or should someone read your question?
We have Sunanda ji. We have Sunanda ji.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, please.
Ma'am?
Yes.
Yeah, Kriti ma'am had talked about that through mail and through had talked about personal is political, and also she has mentioned about that by sending mail and WhatsApp messages we will be able to remove, not totally but a bit, crime against women and domestic violence, which is known as silence crime. How we will be able to solve? Because in my personal view, I have seen a woman had faced domestic violence in her life, and she went police station to register case, but no one was ready to take her complaint against her against the thing. So how we will be able to solve? Because nowadays it's a big a challenge for all of us. How we will be able to empower women? Can you kindly tell me? My humble request to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the question, which is very, very practical and challenging every day for many people. So here what I tell is, suppose 3-4 friends, those who are supporters or friends or relatives, come together and be a support for her emotionally, to fight for it. That is very, very important. It's not a cakewalk, and we have to walk on the rocks. That's what we should get prepared once we are getting out of the house. And the second thing is, when one institution, suppose you go to the police station, if they didn't take a complaint, then you send the mail to different police officers, send to Women Police, National Women Commission, State Women Commission, National Human Rights Commission, State Human Rights Commission. Don't leave anybody. Target all and send to them. Even send a mail to the district collector, meet the collector and give it to him, because he is the district magistrate and he is having all the powers. So we have to make the system to get a kind of a, yes, it is like a triggering. That effect we have to create it. And my suggestion is, at each village or urban level or wherever, even in the institutional level also, we all should form into strong women groups. I'm not talking only about the women self-help groups which are under Rural Development Ministry, but form into a strong women's group and protest for all these things. Now the media is in our hands, social media. Put it on the Twitter, tag it, and have a tweet-a-thon. Use all the social media pressure techniques and start using it. And if the victim is dare enough to face the media, let her also face it and tell what happened. If she is not prepared, don't force her, then start Twitter-thon and all these things, so that the social media is also very, very powerful nowadays. So use these things also, besides the social powerful themes, which we do as, it should be like a relief and also a kind of a responsive support system for the victim.
Yeah.
And
Thank you,
tag
ma'am.
all the things.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Don't stop with one service providers, no.
I've also written in the chat box your answer.
I would request Hemlata ji to unmute herself and ask her question.
Yeah.
Ma'am, unmute yourself and speak, no? Miss Hemlata Gar.
Lata ji, if you can unmute.
Yes.
Rimsha ji, Malvika ji, you can unmute and ask your question.
If Sunanda Das also is raised the hand.
She asked you, no? She asked you
Yeah,
question.
okay.
She was the first one who asked question. Yeah, now.
Yeah, so I have also asked actually.
Malabika
So,
Dar.
yeah.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what is
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That is, please go ahead. Yeah.
Nana, you had one question?
And one more question in the Q&A. And
Yeah.
it seems,
Nishma Khan. Nishma Khan.
The person is there, it seems, but they are not responding. As
So-
you are in the field of law and have much more knowledge about the ground realities, do you think that Indian society needs a similar law for domestic violence against men? It is a hot topic of discussion on social media these days.
They are there.
Let me give you my experience. In our counseling center also, we are getting where the men are getting victimized. But when we see the percentage wise, the women victimized are more than the men victimized. So that's why when we talk of reservations, why do we talk women reservations? Because women are vulnerable. That's why we are doing it. So the Domestic Violence Act, which is for the woman, if everything like a prevention of sexual harassment against women at workplace. So those things are for women, because to encourage the woman to go for workplace and also to have a dignified life for the woman and also protect themselves from the domestic violence. Yes, the cases are on increase. And the second thing, comparative nature, if we have similar laws, means it's a long way we have to go. And currently, the laws which are for the women are not being implemented as it has to be implemented in a right spirit.
Men who are violated, go use the criminal law, no? And police is very
Yes.
sympathetic. Police, there is a brotherhood, solidarity. Police is always with men who are violated, and all the existing laws are only biased in favor of men. So criminal law is always used by men who face any kind. In fact, if you read the judgments of some of the high courts and session courts and all, even if the wife doesn't serve tea in immediately after he comes home, he has got divorce, okay? Or their wife doesn't give up a job if he's transferred and he asks her to give up a job and she doesn't, he says there's psychological violence. And judges have given judgment that the woman's under restitution of conjugal right. I think I strongly request you to go through Manusmriti, all the judgments, and see how the laws are operating. In 99%, they are favoring man. And anything, whether it's emotional violence, psychological violence, or physical violence by his wife or girlfriend or whatever. Law is always there to protect man. There is a universal brotherhood among the legal machinery, police as well as legal system, right from the clerk and watchman and liftman and the family court. All of them are sympathetic to poor man, poor man, poor man. Even in case of, like, I remember going with Flavia with her 3 kids, and the way argument was going on in the court, her husband was an executive in Tata's, earning massive this thing, and we were fighting for the maintenance, and constantly he was referred to by the court as a poor man. He's aging. How can he give this so much? And finally, after 8 months of struggle, what we got was 750 rupees as maintenance for 3 kids, for a woman who has been thrown out by her husband. So this is the way law operates, So it's very important to understand that everything is skewed in favor of man. So Pati Bachao Manch, or all those new organizations that have emerged on social media and all, we are sympathetic if they are beaten up or ill-treated, because so many unemployed men have been ill-treated by their working wife. I don't deny that. But existing law themselves protect him if he goes to
I have a question.
Yeah.
Like, as per UN environment, it is estimated that around 80% of people are displaced by climate change are women. And when women are displaced, they are at greater risk of violence, especially sexual violence and domestic violence, since women's body becomes the site for patriarchies to exercise its frustration. So then how do we think of current policies and laws tackling and preserving the rights of these women, doubly torn, first by climate adversaries and then patriarchy?
Yes. This is the mind-boggling issue even the UN Women is facing, and that same thing happened even during the pandemic. Even whether it's a health emergency or the climate change or a natural disaster or a man-made disaster, women are the worst victim, both in the community violence, like account is sorted out on women's body, when the two communities fight, then also women face sexual violence. And within the whole insular feeling, which is created because of this insecurity, also makes man. So there is an internal patriarchy is also very violent to women, their daughters and wives and mothers and aunts, and external patriarchy, obviously, among the hostilities between two communities also resulting. So I think that's why we need, as Dr. Kirti told, that we need far more safeguards, because we have 5,000 years of patriarchal value system has rationalized. All our proverbs talk and glorify violence against women. When a man brings his bride, all of them, including elderly women who become honorary man by then, they also constantly give a hint that keep her under your control. And how do you keep her under control? By threatening her or by beating her up.
Shalu ma'am, would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, we have been talking about violence of different forms since the day one. Yeah, and this climate change and all this pandemic, and they have a different kind of impact on women. And I think we need to invest more time, more resources to understand why, how to really help in that kind of situation. So when UN Women is doing that, but at the national level, how much resources we can invest, how much manpower we can invest, so that we can formulate some kind of plan. So even if the woman is facing state violence, in the community kind of conflicts, as ma'am was saying, so how should we go about there are different kind of marginalization we were talking about earlier. So if these are the kind of marginalizations we are facing, and the solution for each kind of vulnerabilities, we have to really some of the things we have find, but more I think we have to do. So that is something we have to do more and more, and it's very less what we have done, something we have achieved, but we have to achieve more. This is what I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to call Vibhuti ma'am to share her closing remarks. Vibhuti ma'am, I would request you to share your closing remarks.
Yeah. I think this 4-day session, in a conclusion, we can say that 10 important points that have emerged. First of all, like with this first 4 thematic areas that we discussed, ensuring women's safety in situation of increasing violence, violence and legal safeguards and other measures, ensuring safety of women in public spaces, and ensuring safety in the homes. Now, what is the first important lesson that we have had is that criminal justice system needs to be more sensitive and responsive to make legal safeguards effective at ground level. That means large-scale, impactful training to ensure robust standard operative procedures for filing first information report, judicious and time-bound investigation, and meticulous detailing in the charge sheet that has to happen. So police and the legal system has to be trained continuously, and gender sensitization programs have to be ongoing, there has to be continuous ongoing programs. Number 2, speedy justice. Justice delayed is justice denied. Hence, funds and functionaries must be allocated for fast-track courts across states and union territories, and mandatory gender sensitization training for judicial authorities that should happen. Number 3, special investigation units, like for a heinous crime, to expedite investigation process should be ensured. That means fast-track courts are very important. 4th one is a capacity training of prosecutors. Like often perpetrators on bail end up threatening victims and their families, leading to serious consequences. Hence, bail should not be easily granted without robust and evidence-based arguments by prosecutors. And we need a powerful process to ensure evidence, information, documentation by police, which are submitted, and so that the bail is not easily granted in violent crimes. 5th very important thing that has emerged in our deliberation is the protection of women from Sexual Harassment Act, and also protection of children from sexual offense ordinance. That is implementation of these laws in its letter and spirit, and the consequences for not implementing these laws should be strongly penalized. So all the employers, all the authorities, whether it is in children's home or in schools or junior colleges, because all children below 18 come under POCSO. So POSH Act, I think they need to create the ICCs, and also it should be functioning ICCs, not for namesake, both in the private enterprises as well as public sector. 6th one is that infrastructure to ensure safety of women in public spaces. In the last day 3, we discussed at great length that how street lights, bus stands, pavements, waiting rooms, public toilets, public transport, which are GPS enabled, and CCTV cameras also, they are important for safety for women. And in addition, one-stop crisis center and the local complaints committee in case of a sexual harassment at workplace, because 92% women are in the informal sector. Even the domestic workers, they are come under informal sector. So the local complaints committee, which are there most of the time, they are on paper, but they should be functioning, and they should be effectively functioning in every single district. 7th point that emerged is that all the 24/7 helplines, whether it is for children or elderly people, a person with disability, women survivor of violence, as I think Dr. Kirti Bolirani showed us, that these are the safe helpline. And during pandemic, I think more than nearly 3 lakh children even use these helplines, no? They are there for the states also. We have police helpline, we have a central helpline, and we also have helplines in the state commissions for women and National Commission for Women. And the safety apps which are created for the speedy response, they are GS enabled and tracked for effectiveness. And now also we need to create more safety apps. 8th one is to promote women's safety awareness and empowerment. That means sustained multi-layered program, and and also that should include self-defense, leadership skill, education on law and legal options about women's safety and empowerment is essential. It has to be an ongoing agenda. Communication with man, equally important. After Nirbhaya tragedy, more and more focus is there on changing the mindset of adolescent boys, no? Because the currently, even if you see the data of National Crime Records Bureau, the highest number of sexual crimes are committed by adolescent children. That means they are in the age group of 15 to 18 or 20. So communication with men is equally important for women's safety. And there have been very successful examples. For example, Must Bowl by Delhi University, or the Akshara's work in Dharavi slum, where they involved the adolescent boys who were indulging into harassing the girls, and they started having dialogue with them, and they are the ones who are changed, who used to treat harassment as a time pass. No, they have now become an active agent for promotion of women's rights. We need to communicate on both gender equality and sensitivity in all campaigns and communications across rural, urban, and tribal areas. Ninth one is the Nirbhaya Fund. State must use this fund fully and optimally, and if they are not, then they should be accountable. And it should enable both infrastructure needs of women's safety and capacity building on gender sensitivity and equality. So this grossly underutilized Nirbhaya Fund, I think about that we need to create more public dialogue, and also the accountability system for all those authorities who are not using Nirbhaya Fund. The last one is about the Swadhar homes for women in difficult circumstances. Dr. Kirti gave us a data about the one-stop crisis center and Swadhar home, but most of the time they are found non-functioning, and the quality of life in these shelter homes is extremely deplorable. So more and more citizenship awareness, community awareness, and also creation of accountability system for the state-supported infrastructure and the system structures mechanism which the state has created to address violence against women. I think they need to be strengthened through public, and that's why the responsibility of everyone increases. Only few of us in the women's organization, we are always crying hoarse about it, and we also take it up with every day. And people know that these women, they are like mad fools. For 40 years, they have been shouting and screaming. But I think everyone, all citizens will have to do that. Then only the social transformation will take place, and we will move on the pathway to gender equality. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. As we come to the end of day 4 of a 4-week online certificate training course on ending violence against women, awareness of laws and policies in India, I, Bhanvi, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Gender Impact Study Center, New Delhi. We are grateful to our experts for the day 4 session, Professor Vijay Lakshmi Nandaji for her special remark, Advocate Dr. Shalu Nigamji, and Dr. Kirti Bulineni for taking out their valuable time and giving the opportunity to the participants to learn from this online certificate program. I would like to specially thank Professor VIBHUTI Patel for chairing the session. We thank all our participants who have raised pertinent questions and actively participated into this deliberation. We are grateful if you're watching us later on YouTube or listening to us on our various podcasts or reading our publications. So for the certificates, we will be sharing a feedback form for you to provide your details for the certificates and obtain your feedback and suggestions. Please mention your name correctly for the purpose of handing out the certificates. We have shared the recorded video of the training program in your email for your kind perusal in case you missed the live sessions. And thanks to the organizing team of IMPRI, Gender Impact Study Center, for conducting the whole session in a smooth manner. We hope you continue to join in future to our IMPRI #Web Policy Talk and Web Policy Learning. Wishing you a good day. Thank you.
Just one thing I can add, one sentence. I would like to thank the IMPRI team, especially Professor VIBHUTI Patel for chairing the session, all the panelists and all the participants, for having so much of active exchange of knowledge, and I have learned a lot. And so thanks to all of you. That is the only in a very short thing I just want to say.
And we admire your courage and boldness that you, such a young age, you took up this challenge of thinking of such course and be the master trainer. No, I think we salute you and we commend your efforts.
Yeah, it's all inspirations are all from you.
Extremely praiseworthy. Yeah.